Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Last of Us stream. This is episode number 6. So we are now officially 2/3 of the way through the series. And I have a couple of hosts, or I have my co-hosts here, and I have a couple of other special guests with me. So let's one by one. Let's go. Well, first of all, hello, Kyle.
Hey
What's going
David,
on?
how are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. We just got done with another episode of The Last of Us, as we all did. So, Kyle is of course our co-host, and we have a couple of special guests, uh, Kit Stone and Destiny Jackson from Deadline. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to talk all about this new episode. And so, this episode was called Kin. Let's just right off the bat, Kyle. Why don't we start with you? What did you think about the episode, and what did you like about it, and what was your takeaways?
I thought this was an excellent episode. It's not, I think, in my top 2 or 3, but it's an episode that I thought really relied upon the relationship between Joel and Ellie. It reminded me a lot of episode 4, where they were really starting to connect. In this episode, we started to see them kind of break apart and then reconnect, which I really liked. I also thought that this is by far, I think, Pedro's best performance in the show so far, especially the one scene he has between him and Tommy, where he basically admits to being weaker than he's ever felt. And in terms of when you look at toxic masculinity in media today, it's, I think, really nice to see a man actually admit that they are being and be when they are being vulnerable. And I think that was great to see. I thought that Bella gave possibly her best performance this episode too, especially in the scene where she's fighting with Joel. There's also, I think, one of the elements that I really loved from episode 1 that I missed throughout the season, the relationship between Joel and Tommy. We get to see Gabriel Luna back to play Tommy, and I think that he's just as good as Pedro is as Joel. And I think that was honestly what I really was connected to most in this episode, the relationship between these two brothers and all they've been through since we last saw them. It wasn't as much focused on the action, but I think what we've been seeing with The Last of Us is they have these breather episodes where you'll have one action moment, and then you'll have an episode I think episode 3 is a good example, or this episode where it's less revolving around action and more so revolving around the relationships between the characters. And I think that is really useful. And I love the ending use of the song by Deepak Mode, but it was a new rendition of it. And I don't know if it was on this channel, but our good friend editor Timothy Good that we had on here, he mentioned, I think, in a podcast that they used another version of that song from the pilot that Deepak Mode performed, and it was in a later episode. And here we hear it, and I think it was very, very well utilized. It's funny though to me. I'm very curious to see what Twitter and all the social media reactions are in regards to this episode, especially to non-gamers, because I'm wondering if people are like, wait a second, is Joel dead? Because I mean, if you haven't played the game, you don't know what's going to happen next. So I thought it was a really interesting way to end this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Kit, why don't we go to you? What was your thoughts about it, and what did you like about it, and what were your takeaways about it?
David, are we still streaming? Are we streaming now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I see it says scheduled on the top.
No, we're live right now.
Okay.
We are live right now. Kit. what did you think about the episode? What were your takeaways, and what did you like, and what did you didn't really care
Yeah,
for?
I first I loved the opening with the indigenous couple and how they were just so chill. I thought that was really fun and really funny. I definitely think that Bella gave a really great performance in this episode. Um, and it's really great positioning because next week we're going to get more into her story. Um, and so we kind of get a sense of where that emotion is coming from, where it stems from, that situation. Um, I the most the thing I found the most interesting about this episode were the dynamics between um old relationships and new, because here Joel is coming to his brother. He's been searching for his brother this whole time. He finally finds his brother. He needs his brother's help. And, his brother has established his own life and now has a wife and a child on the way. And this kind of dynamic of, but I need you, so what's it going to be? Kind of like, you're going to do this for me, I'm your brother, and I really felt what Tommy was saying um when he was talking to Joel, because it's like, I understand what has happened to you. I understand what you've gone through, but like, I got my own thing going on over here. And I mean, at the end of the day, he was still willing to do it for Joel, but I just felt it was selfish of Joel to kind of put that on him. And I understand that he was like, I can't do it. I don't, you have to take it from me. I'm too weak. But it was a really interesting dynamic and weight to put on Tommy. And the fact that Tommy was still going to do it. Like, if I was his wife, I'd be like, where do you think you're going? Like, your brother comes to town and now you dipping, like, but yeah, that's the most interesting part of the episode um that I found, is that kind of push and pull of, do this for my brother or stay here, because I've kind of established my own life. And you know yeah.
David, you're muted.
David, you're muted.
Yes, I am muted. So I have a tendency to do that. So Destiny, let's get your thoughts on the what you liked, or what you didn't like, or anything else.
Yeah. I like this episode. This is it's so interesting hearing Kyle say that this isn't in his top 3. This is actually rounds out my top 3. Because my first would be, episode 3, and then I liked episode 5, and then episode 6 are my top 3 for this series. But with that said, I think this episode has major pacing problems. But I'm wondering if that's because obviously we know the game, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. I don't want to do that up front. But I struggle with the pacing towards the end of this episode. However, the things that I really do like about it, which makes it up in the top 3, are, for some of the reasons that Kid said. This relationship building here, a little bit of what Kyle said. Joel is vulnerable here. Joel is so vulnerable, talking about his past, his dreams, his trauma. We don't get that in the video game at all. And you see him have like this panic attack, right? And Ellie doesn't necessarily know what a panic attack is, and she's like kind of talking to him. But even though, he's like, shut up, right? But he's still not mean as he could be. You know what I mean? in that moment. And then, kind of to jump towards the end of this episode a little bit here, is that he completely trusts her because, he gets stabbed, and then she's like, hey, you need to jump on the horse, right? And he doesn't question her. He doesn't try to fight anymore. He jumps on that horse and she starts shooting. So there's moments here where you see again these layers of Joel, lower and kind of let Ellie in inch by inch, even though he is trying to pass her off to Tommy. Eventually he realizes, like, oh, I can't do this. He takes her words to heart here more than ever. That scene at the beginning with the indigenous couple, definitely my favorite comedic moment for sure, that we've gotten so far. But even in that scene too, again, like, she was hiding, right? Joel probably told her to hide, and then the indigenous wife tells her husband, like, he's got a girl with him, right? And Joel's face in that moment is so funny because he's like, I can't believe you just told on me. And then Ellie's like, well, can I come down? And then, like, Joel's just like, oh my god, like, this whole mission is out of control. And so but also I think that's why the indigenous wife was not so threatened by him, because he showed up with a little girl. You know what I mean? So I think that there's layers to this episode, and the central heart of it, I think, is Joel finally easing up, for me anyway. So that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that this was so after last week's really after last week's episode, like, there was a lot of there was a lot that was going on, right? And so what ended up happening was I mean, they needed it. I'm gonna call it like a cool down episode. They needed a slower episode, if you will. Because you had so I think it was episode 2, you finally got your first shot of the clickers. Then episode 5, last week's episode, it was just, everything with bloaters and the rush of infected. So they hit a peak, and now they're starting to come down from it. I think this was a good episode. I mean, it was a good episode. It wasn't a great episode. I like that, we finally get Tommy, back, and that whole sequence. To your point, Kyle and everybody else, I thought that, I think Pedro and Bella had their moments where they stole the show. When Pedro was talking to, or when Joel was talking to Tommy, I thought that was fabulous. You see that vulnerability. And then, Ellie there at the end. I was really looking forward to that one scene, and even, Neil Drunkman had said something on the behind the scenes stuff. That was one of the, most pressurized things. I mean, even Bill had said, I didn't sleep for kidding. He said, I didn't even sleep for a couple nights because I wanted to get it right. I wanted things to, be perfect for that. So I think that it was good. I mean, they reached, ECU, the monkeys, and that was, fun.
Can
Yeah.
I say something too, David?
Go for it.
I to what Destiny was saying about Joel being weak, I think he was weak both physically and emotionally. I think, this journey, the closer he gets to Ellie, it scares him, and the thought, I mean, no, she's not his daughter, but she is the closest person to him in that kind of relational sense. And I think that fear of not being able to protect her, of possibly losing her, or even just possibly loving her too much is scary. And so I think that definitely plays a part too. If he thinks that he can hurry up and get rid of her, maybe he can detach. But that speech just, solidified that, like, they've both lost so much, and now they've both found someone to kind of help them, along this journey.
And
That's been, yeah.
that one scene where he is talking to Ellie saying, "You don't know what loss is." That one scene, if you notice the way that Pedro is just standing, the way he moves, you see him just tense up. Like, you can tell it's not just the way he is, vocalizing the lines, it's also his own body language. And I really do love the way that Pedro performs in that particular scene, because like when Ellie pushes him, it's like she's pushing like a rock. He just, and it's almost like a defense mechanism for him, because I think he wants to maintain this tough guy image, that he doesn't want people to see him vulnerable. But then, as we see, they are chipping away at that outer shell of his throughout this episode. And like, it's really, I would say, captivating to watch, especially from Pedro and everyone around him.
Yeah, I think that was the I think we're starting to, see everything that, you know, that was the I mean, I wrote a note down. I said they are now Ellie and Joel, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they are now the perennial. Um, they are the twosome, right? And so I think that it really they they're just good together. They know each other now, you know. And it's one of those things where you know, um, and that's what Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann have been saying on their podcast, is that they want to leave all of these, or as many as they can, on cliffhangers. So it's one of those things where, um, I just, yeah, I mean, they are Ellie and Joel now. They know each other. I mean, and they care about each other and everything else. And so I think once they got to Jackson, and once everything happened. So the notes I had were, I love the callback about the map. In the beginning of the game, which you were talking about when Joel said, point to where we are, and the other one had better do the same. That was a little, you know, nod back to the game, with the interrogation. Um, you know, I like the fact that they talked about the future. They were at the campsite and they talked about the future, and they said, um, Ellie basically said, well, what happens if all this goes away? And Joel had basically said, you know, this is what I want. I want a house on a farm. It actually kind of reminded me of like The Last of Us Part Two, with the the horses and the sheep and everything else. So it was like a farmhouse. Um, so that was interesting but good to see. Um, once again, Ellie being Ellie, you know, uh, we see that shot of Joel when he wakes up, and Ellie's just standing there with the gun in her hand, and basically says, I took second shift because you fell asleep. And I mean, it was a little bit of banter. And so, um, what was the line he said? When he said it, basically said goodnight to Ellie, dream of a sheep on the sheep ranch on the moon. I thought that was kind of,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that little, I thought that was a nice little comedic thing.
I love that
Um,
conversation that Ellie and Joel had when she was talking about the astronauts, because
yes.
I think we see a little bit of Ellie learning what life would be like if none of this had happened. Where would
Right.
she be? Would she be into astronauts, like would she want to be an astronaut herself? But then there's the lawyer when I forgot the name of Tommy's wife. She says to her, oh, you'd make a great lawyer. And then there are many comments throughout the episode about Ellie saying, oh, what did you do, Joel? You were a contractor. And she learns a lot about what life was like. Even her reading that little journal or diary, it probably was some girl that had a diary. And I really like how she's seeing what life is like. And that's in the game, too, the way that she also looks at things. But I think that expanded upon that character in this sense. And I just really love that campfire conversation. I don't remember it if it was in the game. Does anyone remember that?
No, it wasn't.
Which part? Oh,
when she was talking about like Sally Ride and
no. It
oh
wasn't.
no, that's not in there.
You know what it reminded me of? I think it might have been a little nudge toward Last of Us 2.
Yeah, that's what these
museum,
all.
The
Yeah,
astronauts.
Yeah,
that's to me.
Yeah,
that's why
right.
that was.
I think that's why they keep putting these little astronaut references in there, because they are referencing number 2. Yeah, because that kind of came out of nowhere.
And did you notice? Like there was that one shot in the episode when Ellie arrives, and there's like a girl. It looked like a girl, right? And she like walks away.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if I want to do spoilers
I know.
or anything.
No
but
spoilers. Yeah, just mention who you think it is.
Like David, is that who did you think the same thing when you saw that one girl walk by
in the cafeteria?
Yeah.
Because it's very strange that she has a ponytail.
Where she snaps at that girl?
Yeah, that girl.
Yeah.
I think it's that girl.
It might be. I think it might be too.
Yeah, it could have been.
Because why would they focus on her, right?
Yeah, it's too random.
Yeah. I you know what? To be absolutely honest, I saw it when I first watched. I'd have to go back and watch the, thing. I think I know who you're referring to, and we're not going to say it, but it's one of those things where I could see it. Yeah, maybe.
Because it's like why? Because otherwise, that conversation could have just been like kids were staring at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
that
why focus on that one particular character, that person?
And why make it look like who we think it might be? Like,
right? Like,
why couldn't it just be a little 4 or 5-year-old child that's like, wearing a red jacket and earmuffs or something? Like the way they did it was so, I think, it was intentional that we have to listen to the suspicions.
We have to listen to the podcast.
No, absolutely.
I wonder if they'll mention it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a good indication too of what it was.
That cafeteria scene too is so funny to me because Joel is so Joel's like, to Tommy's lady, he's like, I would like this to just be a conversation between family, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, Joel, why are you so hostile? Like, me and Kit were joking about this earlier, but obviously we can't say the things that we could. We're gonna keep it G-rated for the YouTube stream. But we were like, Joel, you are treating her so poorly, like as if you don't have a black baby mama. Like, Joel, why are you treating her so terribly? But anyways, that's an interesting scene, that cafeteria scene.
Yeah,
though I think we do see a lot of Joel just disconnecting from family, right? Because he doesn't like the idea at first that Tommy's a father, and he feels really, he doesn't know how to handle that because I think he's detached himself from that life. And that is one thing about that dinner conversation. It's him seeing that his brother now might be having a life that he was looking for before all the stuff went down. And I think that's really telling of Joel's character, and it shows you by the end of this episode, especially how much closer he is with Ellie, because we needed to see them have some sort of break for us to, I think, really care about them even more. And once they do finally reconcile and have that moment on the horse where they're just having fun with each other, it's like I think Joel is starting to come back to the person he used to be. But he's not there yet, but he's no longer, I think, in that dark place where he didn't want attachments. And I think that is really interesting.
No, absolutely. I think that
it's
go ahead.
interesting too that, you know, Tommy's kind of gaining the things that Joel lost, in a sense. Like, Joel no longer has a daughter.
Yeah.
He no longer has Tess. He finds Tommy with his wife and a baby on the way. And so it's kind of, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to put it, but it's just it's an interesting, I have a loss for the word, but yes, it's an interesting
Juxtaposition.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's an interesting juxtaposition, which makes his request for Tommy to take over Ellie and like go on this, dangerous journey, because it is dangerous, because you got cordyceps and you got fireflies and all kind of stuff going around.
Firefly people.
right. But yes, it's just that's what made it even more interesting that he would ask Tommy to do it. Like your family don't mean nothing anyway. I need you to take this girl down here. And Tommy's like, but I literally have a wife. I have a community. I have a baby on the way. Look at my home. And Joel's like, anyway, I've been having
look at my beautifully crafted bar ice.
You said what?
Look at my beautifully crafted bar ice in my bar. Do you not want a drink?
Okay.
Before we do all that, Joel's like, anyways,
take this foul mouth teenager and take her to the fireflies. I'm gonna go, just chill out. So yeah, that's an interesting scenario.
Yeah. So let me kind of talk about the differences here. For those at home, the video game version and the way that this part of the game plays out versus the way it played out in the show. They are not completely different, I think, because Joel and Ellie do end up at that commune, right? Communists, LOL. And then Tommy's face looks so devastated because he's such an army brat. You know what I mean? So this is like the last thing he wants to hear. And remember, the world went down during the Bush era, right? So they went down in like the most conservative era of all time, right? Or not of all, obviously not of all time. The conservative era of all time is right now, but then, you know what I mean? And so Tommy's realization that it's communism is just so funny, and Joel kind of gives him like this little smirk. But anyway, so in the game, Joel and Ellie do end up at Tommy's place, and Tommy and Joel do kind of walk around the commune. Basically, the players playing this, and then some raiders come, and you have to fight off the raiders at the commune. So you don't get a lot of heartfelt conversation because the raiders are here, and then they have to fight them, and then by the time that's all over, Tommy's like, all right, this is crazy as hell. Like, you guys, like, it's dangerous right now, like, I don't know where these raiders came from, like, whatever. And Tommy, to get to your point, Tommy does, when Joel says, hey, I have a proposition for you, I need to take this girl, to the university, blah blah blah, Tommy does stress that he can't go because of his wife, and that his wife won't like it. That is a bigger part in the game there, and in the show, he's kind of like, oh, your wife won't let you, like, it's kind of like a side thing. But in the game as well, you kind of get this other scene where Ellie feels so strongly about Joel's decision that she actually takes one of Tommy's horses and runs away. And you get this scene where Tommy helps Joel find Ellie. Like she's way, 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 way away from the commune somewhere. And it's actually, I don't want to say it's more touching in the game, but you get more interaction between Joel and Tommy in the game during this moment, and them as brothers and them trying to figure out what to do with Ellie, and Joel and Ellie. You get kind of more of a three-way dynamic. Like Ellie gets to know Tommy, whereas in the show here, she's isolated from Tommy. So that was an interesting choice to me. I don't know, Kyle, did you have anything to add here? I mean, it's different, but like, I don't know. The only thing that's really different about it is that the Tommy and Ellie dynamic, I think. But that's because that's going to be important later. So they kind of missed an opportunity here, I think is what I'm trying to say, to build their relationship, I think, in this episode.
Yeah, I'm curious where they, take the future episodes, but with this episode, I mean, what's funny for me, like the game, even though I played it about 2 years ago, it still feels so distant. I barely remember what happens after. Honestly, like I barely remembered what happened after Sarah died, which was the first scene.
Which is the first.
Like, yeah. I mean, I know like glimpses and things. I remember him reuniting with Tommy, but I don't remember the exact details. And I've been replaying the game since it's been on, and it's fun to go back and see how it is different after you watch the show. But I think as a viewer, for me, I'm having a lot more fun this way because I don't have the expectation that this will go the way that I remember it to go, because I just don't remember it. And it works that way. Like, so I'm kind of like both a viewer watching it for the first time, but also a viewer aware of like the big things that will occur. And at least for this episode, I actually was kind of surprised when I was watching it, because for some reason I thought when they get to the snow areas in the game, that happens after this point in the show. Like the whole, I don't know, like
no, it does. It does.
So like, did the Tommy and like this village area, from what I remember, I don't remember there being snow around that area. Or was there?
So Jackson was, they did arrive in the winter. They did arrive in the winter.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was, it was, so in the game, they had to do something with the dam. They had to get past, they had to do a puzzle or something.
Did they have like a raft or something?
Exactly. And that's where Ellie tells Joel, I can't swim. And so then Joel has to go and do, basically go and get a raft to a certain extent, and then basically get her across. And then once they get across, then they get to the beginning of the compound. And so what you'll see is in the compound, you see these people from the top, where somebody was opening the doors and everything else, and then they were holding the guns. So there were no horses coming out. They didn't circle them. They didn't do any of that. But they did hold guns up to him and be like, hey, who are you, type of thing, this. And there was no dog. I mean,
that dog was so cute.
Yeah, no, it really was cute. But so there was nothing like that. So getting there, that's they had to make it a little more dramatic for what it was.
Right. Because a lot of it too, and I just want to like state this too, like the things that they did change about that is like, it's totally fine to me and it makes sense, because it's so many puzzles and things. Like, this is the thing with the game adaptation, is that you can't do that in a show. There's things that you just can't do that you can do in a game, and a game is about trying to figure out how to get to the next step. So obviously you're not going to have Joel find a raft and then go through the electric power plant, and then you're not going to have like this horse mission where you have to wrangle the horses with Ellie, and then that'd be so dumb, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, I wasn't sure. Let me know when we're gonna get to the next part, because the college, I can't use my phone to search Twitter at this moment, but I want to hear what the gamers have to say about the college.
Well, I'll let
stuff.
you go first, Kyle.
Um,
Kyle don't remember.
I don't remember.
Oh, okay,
Like-
okay. So I'll go first then. Okay, it was interesting because, to your point, in the game, Ellie takes a horse and takes off. So you don't see, when you see that scene, which I thought it was done really well, by the way. They had to change it up, obviously, for dramatic purposes, for everything else. But I thought it was done well. I like the fact that she didn't run away either. That being said, so she takes off, and then they get back, and so then they're off to the university. And in the university, this is where they think that they are at that point. And yeah, I mean, it was done. I thought
where does Ellie take off to? What
so she
point?
just goes to some random house in the game. So she just goes to some random house.
But when is this? Like after what point?
So
Yeah.
when
Sorry, go ahead.
after when Joel, so she never overhears Joel and Ellie, or not Joel and Ellie, I'm sorry, Joel and Tommy talking, right? She never overhears that, but she gets an idea. Okay. And so at that point, she takes off because basically he had said to her, he knows the area better than I do, blah, 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 blah. So she takes off. And that's that scene, we had it in the bedroom. And then, so in the game, okay, the Raiders come and they attack the house with all three of them there. So we're getting those later on. And so then they go back and say, fine, be on your way type of thing. And so then that's when they hit ESU. And I thought the ESU scenes were good. I thought it was, it was one of those things where it was pretty, it was just good. I mean, obviously, to your point, you can't have all these puzzles and things to have figured out. So, yeah, no, I liked it. I like the fact that Ellie was questioning Joel about it. So people actually lived here and they went to school here and they went to class. Yeah, that's exactly, and they were, trying to find themselves and everything else. And so I had that little bit of a callback to where, Ellie was still trying to grow up. I mean, she's grown up, but it's like, this is what I want to, I'm still trying to figure things out myself, because she asked Joel at the campfire, well, what happens if once this whole thing's over? So she would like to know, how do I go on after this?
Now,
And,
what was Destiny? You brought up something about the gamers. What were you
Oh,
curious about?
Yeah, long story short, the college level is one of the longest levels of the game.
Mhm.
And they tied it up in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You get to the college, you learn about the Fireflies, you learn about where they went, which they do not cover at all. They kind of like make a joke about it. Maybe they turned into monkeys or whatever. But you learn about the Fireflies, you learn why they left, you learn a little bit about like their base camp and what they're about, and then you obviously you fight more infected. I think they missed an opportunity to add some more infected here.
Mhm.
Like one or two infecti. I don't know, what do we call
No,
them?
it's infected.
And Joel has this whole thing with those raiders. Now, in the game, he gets extensively injured, meaning him and Ellie fall on a pole.
Oh, that's right.
And he
Yes.
gets
I remember that.
impaled. Yeah, he gets
Literally
impaled.
I remember that.
pretty badly. Now I can understand why they didn't do that, because it's probably like, it'd be super expensive, whatever. Like the realisticness of that is probably, slim to none of him surviving that. But that portion of the game, you learned a lot about Joel, and I mean, they did keep like the jokes and stuff with the guitar playing, and that was really sweet. And like, learning about college, like you just said, David. But that part of the game is so fucking long, and there's so much to it that I originally, when I watched this, thought it would be 2 episodes at least. And then I also thought that they would stop it there. So I thought like maybe they'd spend time at Tommy's. And then I said, okay, when they get to the college, there's no way they could fit this in 1 episode. So maybe they'll just naturally stop the season there, and then we'll get a season 2 of The Last of Us, like the first part of The Last of Us, but they did not do that, as we can see. Anyways,
okay.
so that's how big that college thing is. So I just kind of want to see online what the other gamers think about them cutting that college thing into like not even half. But
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
here's the college. Okay, bye college.
yeah. I mean, so
I did
I
like
see
what
why they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree with both of you that they missed a chance to really get some infected there. But I don't, for the tone of the episode, because we had such a big episode last week with the bloater and everything else, and it was all that excitement, I don't think they really wanted it. I think they wanted a slow, low-key kind of show episode to be like, okay, you had your big, because if you look at it, at least my perspective is, in episode 2, I think it was, we got the clickers, and then there was a little bit of a dip. 3 was Billstown, and then you had 4, and then 5 was that last week, which blew the fuck up, right? You had all the clickers and the bloaters and all the infected, and then so they're slowly starting to come down the slope. Now, as far as the length of the ECU thing, it is, to your point, it is long in the game. It's very, very long in the game. You have to go through all these gates and everything else.
Yeah, the generators and that shit.
Yeah,
exactly. That was crazy. That stuff, like, again, like those are the kind of puzzle things that obviously don't really translate. But I feel like they could have did a generator situation. I feel like it would have been more even better than just having these rando dudes just like run out of nowhere.
Yeah,
like,
no,
okay,
I mean,
they were trying to find a generator to open the gate, and then like maybe they're ambushed, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
For someone who hasn't played the game, I did think it was really random. Those dudes just like I was like, what? And we're just gonna fight? Like I don't even know. Like,
who are you and where are you coming from?
And and I mean, I know a little bit more information because I've seen this season already, but at the time, it's just very, very random. Yes, where are you coming from? Why are there just 3 of you? What's going on? And then that happens. And then
it's not, well, the other thing too is it's not like they saw a base out in the distance and we have to avoid these people. It's more of, okay, we're just gonna walk on the campus and this is our gig, and we're gonna do our own thing. I mean, I do think that it was random. I do.
It's random as hell.
Yeah,
but,
and to go back to like something you said earlier, I do feel that I do hope that with the second season we get more cordyceps, and I know that it's not.
We will.
I know it's not really, or infected. Excuse me. I know it's not really about that. It's more about the relationship and all of these other things, because it's like I feel like it's kind of like the world after this big event, and this is the rest of the people that are there. That's like from my perspective of somebody who hasn't played the game, but I just missed that. Like I thought episode 5 obviously was great. You can't do that every episode, but just a little more of a sense of danger. I thought that.
Do you
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah, Kit, and that's the reason why I haven't been talking about that yet. Because and the fact that you as a gamer is even saying that to me, saying that in general, speaks volumes to what that we'll have to talk offline. We can't
Yeah.
talk online
Do
about
So,
you
it.
guys think that might be a result of maybe the show? I mean, I assume they have a very high budget, clearly from other.
well, so the
other
budget, so
things.
every single episode, at least from what I've read and from what I've gathered, is about $10 to $15 million an episode. So Lewis said it's here that it's random, and it's the life of an apocalyptic world. You know, um, you know, more infected is nice. Ironically, the game has a lot of them. Yeah. So in the game, though, okay, you are basically that's it, though. I mean, you are playing as Joel, and you are having to do all these things and figure out all these puzzles and everything else. Yeah. I mean, so I get why they did what they did, but
Interesting.
I want to address Louis' comment. He said
Oh.
more infected is nine. Or what's the comment before? He said
so
it's
he said it's
random.
a
Like
random. It is random, but it is the life of the apocalyptic
I want to
world.
address that because I know Louis has played The Last of Us. I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
That's fine, Louis. That makes sense. Of course, it's random. You're gonna just run into people if there's no indicator. Just like you run into people and there's no indicator whether or not they're gonna spill a drink on you or, hit you or something. You know what I mean? There's no way. But in the game, there's a little more subtleness to it in terms of they're walking through the campus, they're learning a little bit about the Fireflies. Then they learn that campus was too big to keep protected, and that there's a problem, right? So then there's like some guys kind of stalking around, and Joel and Ellie has to avoid them. But then all of a sudden they enter a fight. This one's just kind of like, hey, we're three guys and there were some monkeys over there a little bit ago. Anyways, we're coming to stab you. It was just kind of random as hell, but like not in a way. It made sense and it didn't make sense. I don't know.
I know. I would agree.
That's all I have to
I
say.
think that's a good statement. I think
all I
that's
have to
well
say.
put.
It's like they didn't even talk to them, where it was like you would think if you had the guns, I mean, they have even more men. So
The only thing I can think of is when, at the beginning of the episode, when they're with that couple, and then they say, well, what's past the river? And, it's the river of death and everything else. Or even when Joel's talking to Tommy, you're going to get to a bunch of hunters or whatever it is. So that being said, I could see them doing that. So it's always going to be random.
As
And
it
so
as it should be, but I just here's the thing. For someone who has not played the game, and I understand that when I hear you guys talk about the story though, and making the connection to the series and the game, it sounds like there was both action and story in the game itself.
And there
So
was.
what I'm saying is I feel like the series is definitely has the story. There's just certain scenes, and mind you, I loved this episode. My favorite episodes were 3 and 5, but I do love episode 2. And I just wish that there was a little bit more of a sense of danger when out and about, like that kind of unease, that kind of, because I feel like that's what I've missed. It wouldn't feel as random if it, it's just, what I'm saying? Like, yes, it is random. People are hiding everywhere. People are treading lightly. You don't know when you're going to run into a foe or an infected, but there should be that kind of carried tension, when especially exploring a new place and you don't know who's hiding where or if there's anybody even around. And if we're not going to get more infected scenes like we did early on and in episode 5, then that kind of unsure intensity should be there then to substitute for that.
I do wonder because, like Louis just mentions in here about how they are having a harder time translating the action in this game. It's really interesting to me because I remember I read an interview with Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, and they were talking about how I think in their minds some of the times that video game adaptations failed were when they tried to be too much like the game and how they worked in terms of the gameplay. There were a number of video game adaptations out there where they literally take the gameplay and they make it as part of the movie. I believe the film Doom has that, and also the most recent Tomb Raider film with Alicia Vikander has a moment in it where it does feel like you're in the third person um, action sequences. And when it's like that, I actually, as a gamer, I really love those scenes. And I feel like Kit, as you that haven't played the game, you also would like those scenes. And I just feel as much as we love the show and as much as the show is doing some great work with not just its characters, but even in the action moments we get, I do wonder if when they were making the show, if they were a little bit afraid to go with too much action. Because if they put too much action, they might be afraid it wouldn't be seen as that, you know, hard hitting character.
You mean like a drama?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that I don't want to say too much right now. I've definitely been avoiding this conversation until we get to the end of the series. Yes, I do think there is a trepidation or a lack of balance between the action and the drama, and that's the best way to kind of say that for now.
Yeah, so he says they wanted to have less action because violence in general of the game is too much. And yeah,
Right.
I mean, it is a very, for anybody who hasn't played the game or first timers, or it is a very violent game. It is a very bloody game. I mean, but the fact is,
Joel is like Kane.
yeah, I mean, he's kicking ass and he's taking names. And the thing is,
Joel kick your ass first, ask questions
and
later.
then he'll ask
Joel
questions
the
later.
Conqueror.
The thing is that it's one of those things where, and I get it, that even though, it's one of those things where they had to have a fine balance between a story-driven game like The Last of Us, like this game, and then also be able to put in enough infected that it's going to, be an appetizer, if you will. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. They had to balance it out because they couldn't go all one way and make it super bloody and super, just violent and everything else. And then on the other hand, they couldn't just put, tons of. I mean, they're building up to things.
But I do think that this opens the conversation into the next season, because I think a lot of us, I think almost all of us do agree that this show could definitely benefit if it had a little bit more action in it.
Oh, definitely.
And I think
No
that
doubt.
is something I hope that if they are looking at criticisms or fan discussion, I hope that they maybe implement that more into the second season. A good example for me would be like what's going on with Halo, where the first season of Halo, I think...
Is Halo still on? I have not heard one peep about this.
How did that get renewed? I mean, that's a whole other conversation for another time.
The first season of Halo, for me as a gamer, as a fan of the game, I was heavily disappointed because it's really lacking the action that is from that game.
Yeah.
And it's a FPS, it's a first-person shooter, and it really feels like they took away almost all the action until some of the episodes.
So I mean, it's one of those.
But like
it falls
when it
by
comes
the
to the
wayside.
second season, though, they did get a new showrunner, and I think they might change it up a bit. I think the showrunners here, I mean, Craig Mazin,
Well,
they're
speaking
wonderful. They're the best. But
speaking
I
of
think they
Mazin,
definitely can
this is-
add more to it in the second season.
speaking of Mazin, Louis actually gave us a quote here. He added, "Our belief is we would appreciate the action moments more if they were each unique, separate and apart from the other, and apart from each other. One of them impacting the story directly in a very way, in a very clever way, and being very small or big. Look,
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
is,
The action needs to be. I mean, you're in a world where there's infected beings. So
Yeah.
I think all of the action needs to be controlled, or I think the action is fine being random when it comes to certain things. When it comes to infected, like you don't know when you're going to come across an infected. So that can be random. I just think that, to you guys' point, when you're discussing how the gameplay sets up that whole university scene and how it's actually a really long part of the game, I think it's like a disservice not to, for the viewers to not kind of feel that a little bit more, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It needs balance. Yeah, it needs balance, and that's why I'm interested to see, like, especially, yeah. Anyway, the online talk, but yeah. Hey, sorry, kid. Did you want to add anything? I don't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's exactly what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
It just needs balance. But you know, we can keep rolling. But yeah, that was my thing. That was probably the biggest gripe that I had. And again, I don't want to get into spoilers about the rest of the season. But I think I can say that balance is going to get a lot more tricky for this show.
Yeah, I believe that.
And so I'm very interested to see that, you know, how we crash land this plane.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
But anyways, so moving
the
on.
other
Yeah.
couple things I enjoyed, at least, was the backstory of Maria. I mean, because obviously in the game you're not getting that.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that she was we hear from when she's cutting Ellie's hair that she was a district attorney or an ADA and everything else. And it's just one of those things. I mean, even as the episode ended or was nearing its end, that little montage about how Joel was explaining. First of all, I love that little thing. Ellie has been wanting to shoot a gun for a long time, or wanting a gun. And she was talking about hunting at the beginning of the episode. And so what do we get there near at the end of the episode? We get Joel actually showing Ellie how to shoot, finally, which I thought was
Yes.
really cool. Really cool.
So cool.
And then on the horse, when they're talking, so one of them was he's telling her how football works, and all these other things, and how to shoot, and like I said, those montage. Can we talk about the montage of shots there? Oh
Ooh.
my god, the DP.
Oh
That
my
was
God.
just, oh my god. The silhouette shots, the sunrise shots, it was shot after. I'm like, oh my god.
And
I mean, it was just amazing.
That one shot, there's like one of the first shots near the end where they're just walking, you see the sun shining
Yes.
on them from
Oh
God,
my
that's one of the most
goodness.
beautiful shots I think I've seen on television.
Yeah.
But like, speaking of just the way that some of the shots, I love the sequence when Joel was remembering Sarah, and you have these dissolves, and as like he's seeing
the flashback,
and they do it like the way the sound design's working, like it really was effective. And that was something that I think we can also say that Timothy Good, who was the editor on here, was also responsible for.
Another
and
remarkable job.
Emily Mendez, who he shouted out earlier during the interview, that's his co-editor. And I think, if memory serves me correct, it was either this episode or the last episode that she co-edited with him for the first time. I think she definitely did this one. I noticed it in the credits. and it was just an incredible job in terms of that sequence, because I mean, you're really feeling the sense of Sarah in this episode, who we hadn't even seen. Like, we hadn't seen
It's the first episode.
flashbacks. It's the first time we've seen her since the first episode, and I thought that was really effective. I thought that the panic attacks we mentioned earlier were really interesting, and then there was also, I mean, you guys were talking about how, different when Joel is impaled in the game compared to here, but I actually really liked how they did it, because I had no idea that he was stabbed. The way they do it in such a way that I truly was shocked when he turns around and he has that in his chest.
Well, and that's what they want you to do. It was a little dramatic pause for, like, come on. And then, he looks down and the camera pans down and it's just like, oh, really? You're like, come on. And so they get on the horse and take off. And then, a couple minutes later. And so, it's one of those things where even that closing shot with the camera zooming back on that, it's just like, oh my God, you see the scope of it, right? There's that little train there, but you just see the scope of it. And it's just like, and then, I mean, so I do like the fact that Bella or Ellie had her moment in there, and same with Joel. I mean, we were talking about with Tommy, and then, it's get up. And so, so one of the things that they wanted to do, Craig Mason, Neil Druckmann, is actually leave as close as possible. Leave the episode on a cliffhanger, right? So, and that's basically what they done. Like, if you don't play the game and you don't know what's going on, you're thinking, okay, this is the end of this is the end of Joel. He's done. Good night. Thanks for coming. And so this is when you see things start to really,
And I love, they showed the previews for next week.
Yeah.
They could have, I mean, the way, a lot of reasons why people don't like watching the previews is they might spoil something. But what they did here, they didn't even show you Joel in the previews. They show you just Ellie.
No.
And I love when they do that, because sometimes they end up spoiled. Like, I hate when they have a character either get injured or it looks like the character died, and then the preview for the next week, the character's in the preview. I'm like, oh, well, they must be alive then.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't do it here, and they do it in such a smart way where you, as a viewer, now a number of non-gamers are wondering what's going to happen to Joel. Is he dead? Is he, going to be okay? And I think that was a pretty a brilliant way of advertising the next episode.
Oh, yeah. And Louis said it best right there. Yeah, we're getting left behind next week.
I also want to say that
he did.
It's really great to see little things like Ellie happy to be finding tampons in one episode, and then being exposed to the Diva Cup. And I'm like, Ellie is all of us when the Diva Cup came out, because what? And because sometimes we don't think about those kind of things when we are living in a post-apocalyptic world.
Destiny, I think you were going to bring up the question earlier about the movie. So they were watching a movie. Does anyone know what movie they were watching?
No.
Because
I'm sure that was some Easter
Close
egg.
Encounters? It can't be, though. Why would?
I don't know.
I remember they kept on calling. I think that was Richard Dreyfuss, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure I'm sure they're going to talk about that in the podcast.
Because it was. They said the character's name was Mr. Garfield.
1977. I think it's the Goodbye Girl.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'm
sure that was chosen for a specific reason, and which we'll probably find out in the episode.
Yeah.
But
the Goodbye Girl, Neil Simon comedy, 1977. The Goodbye
Oh
Girl.
yeah, I'm looking at it. Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss. Good job.
Good.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, everything is selected for a reason. Everything is done for a reason, and you talked about it in your interview with Tim, whether it's the music, whether it's the shots, whether it's, whatever it is. And it's just,
I feel
that's there.
It's funny though when they show you those, like a movie or show, and you don't know what it is as a viewer, because sometimes if you're watching a show or movie, they'll show a movie and it's a very popular film. Sometimes it'll be like either Star Wars or Wizard of Oz. But I always love when it's a movie you've never heard of or seen before, because then it makes you as a viewer go, huh, what?
Yeah.
Where
Makes
is
you
this
think.
from? Yeah.
So
I gotta read the synopsis of this movie. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But so Louis is basically saying, he knows why they picked that movie. It's because of a song. So I don't know if that's a spoiler or not.
In an article, it says that the core of its story centers on the emerging bond between Joel and Ellie.
Oh, there you go.
The reluctant father figure and the foul-mouthed kid, and their arc is mirrored in the film, seen in the pivotal episode, The Goodbye Girl.
Yeah,
I am jumping out of the window right now as we speak.
No, I think that it's everything they're doing. Pretty much everything they're doing is hitting home. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of those things where, I'm really, to everybody's point, I'm glad about they're finally going to cover Left Behind.
Yeah.
We had seen this in the previews or the trailer originally. We had seen a couple shots, and I was wondering when they were going to get to it. I thought we might have had like a flashback here or there. But it looks like, just like Billstown, I think we're going to get a whole episode. If I were a betting man, we're going to have maybe a 5-minute stint with Joel. Okay. And find out
if he's alive.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then they're going to have a little dialogue, and then it's going to snap right back to the flashback of the Left Behind. And that's what we're going to get for the majority. And then, because we know what happens for that, which, by the way, that was DLC, was really cool. We're going to come back to the present day. And, yeah. And that's how it happens.
What's interesting about the Left Behind DLC, first off, I believe this is probably the first DLC to ever be depicted in live action.
Absolutely.
And I think what's really cool is that, like, I haven't played the game in a while, so I forget it, but I just recently played the DLC before the show came on, so I really remember that one. Mm-hmm. And I think just based on the coming attractions for the next episode, they are taking that DLC like shot for shot. And I really think that this episode could be one of the best of this season, because I love that DLC. And I really think that if we get to the parts in that DLC that I think we're going to get to, we're talking about some of the biggest moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Of the show.
Absolutely. I would have liked, and I don't know if I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah, I think that it's one of those things where this is, and hopefully scene for scene as well. Yeah, no, it looks like they're going to. I mean, the whole photos, there's a couple of scenes in the game that look like they're taken right. If the dialogue is, I would say this much, Louis, if the dialogue is taken right out of the game, which, I mean, all you got to do is look at this whole series, but, especially tonight, that the scenes are be taken right out. I mean, you're going to have the Photoshop scene, or the photo booth scene. You're going to have the whole, the lights coming on.
Yeah.
I mean, everything.
But you know
So
what's really cool though, like I know Louis, you want hopefully scene by scene, but I'm excited for what they're going to add to it, because if you see in the previews, they have, it looks like, a way more fleshed out storyline from before the DLC even happens.
right. To your
And
point, Kit, I think we're gonna get a hell of a lot more action next week.
yeah,
I think this is where, you know,
Yeah.
they needed an episode to kind of slow things down, so to speak. I think next week, you know, I mean, I don't know, and this was in the trailer, so there's the next week's promo, so this isn't a spoiler. Anybody see that bloater? There was a bloater there.
I didn't see one.
Yeah, that last shot, or his second to last shot, there was a bloater.
Oh, interesting.
So I guarantee.
Was there a bloater in the DLC?
No, but there were infected. So I think what they're trying to do is ramp it up.
Interesting.
So essentially, what ends up happening in the DLC is there is infected, and they have to go.
Yeah. Be careful not to.
No, I'm not.
Reveal the
I'm
whole
not.
thing.
And I'm not. But it's just one of the. So they have to do certain things in the DLC, and I'm dying. And by the way, we're probably going to get that joke book again. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
I think we're going to get,
because the joke book looked to be a discovery that Ellie made in that particular episode.
right. But what I'm saying is she's had it the whole time. So I think we're probably going to get the I think we're probably going to get the joke
Has she
book.
had it the whole time though? She just found it.
No, she pulled it out of her bag. She never said, "Oh, look what I found."
Oh, was it in there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because if one thing about the DLC is that scene, and you know you have the joke book.
Yeah.
So,
no, I know, but like that's. I thought she just happened to find that somewhere, but
nope.
Oh, okay. So maybe that will. Ooh, that will be really interesting if they do touch upon that, because I think then, you know, on rewatches for people, they will feel, I think, more connected to those scenes. I do wonder though, when it comes to next week, you talk about, you know, where they're gonna head in terms of like the present day, because this will be. It looks like it will mostly be a flashback episode, but I do. Like, if you remember in the DLC, there is action in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
That's going to be interesting, whether they focus solely on the flashback with the action sequences, or they do both. And I agree with David. I agree that they will spend that whole episode on that DLC.
Yeah.
But I'm curious on what they do, because this is my most anticipated episode for the show. I really love that DLC. I love what they are doing with, I think, just at least for the gamers too, because from what I play and stuff, it is somewhat like the show itself is somewhat still different from the game. Like it's not shot by shot.
Yeah, no, they don't
like
want to beat by beat.
And
they need to have
that.
it.
It makes it feel like its own thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. They can't have it shot by shot. Because they want to duplicate the game. They needed to have some different type of things. Even the scene, even that I was going to say cut scene, but even that scene in the room when Joel walks in, there was dialogue taken from that, but it wasn't beat by beat by beat by beat. You know, no, hopefully we, you know, scene by scene, but it's one of those things where I think that it's going to be good. That's what I do know. It's going to be good. I'm really curious to see if they do. So like I said, I think they're going to structure it like that. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit. So we know what's going to happen next week, and that's going to be The Last of Us DLC. Where do you think, Kyle? Where do you think this goes from there? Because
Well, there are 9 episodes, right?
right, there's 9. So we're
that's
assuming.
3.
Let's
So
just
that's
play it out
1,
for a minute
2.
that Salt Lake City is going to be the last episode.
I think I know what the last
So
episode will be. I think I have a good idea. I think I know where they're going for the next 3.
Okay.
I think I know where they're going. And I
Okay.
think what's cool too is that with the next 3, I don't know how long they are, but with this episode, I will say, given it wasn't, I mean, I think it was like 1 minute, at least when I saw it on television, it was like, it ended at 10:01, which is that. So it's, I mean, it's not, the episode isn't 1 hour long itself, but it was, I think, a suitable amount, but it wasn't overtime. Like, it wasn't over an hour like some of the other episodes have been. But because, I mean, even though it wasn't over an hour, I still felt like for this episode, they packed a lot in here. We got Tommy and Joel's relationship. We got the whole stuff with Joel and Ellie. We got the college, even though it wasn't as, much as it was in the game. And we had that sequence with Joel getting stabbed. Like, we got a lot of stuff, I think, for this episode, which is something that in like episode 4, I think I wanted a little bit more of in that episode. And it was a shorter episode too. And I think that I'm glad that this episode, I was actually shocked at how long it was, because I was like, wait, it's not over yet? Like, I feel like this is a point that they would end it at. But no, like, I think even Destiny brought it up earlier, like where they were going to end this episode. And they actually went on. And I think they used the time. Personally, I thought they used it well. It didn't feel like, they were essentially making it too short or too long. But
no. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, I mean, they had that little opening sequence with the couple. We go and it's 3 months later, and so the fact is, I would say 30 to 40%, minutes of the episode was focused to Tommy's. I mean, you had that little, getting there, okay, and then you had, showing him around and everything else, getting acclimated, finding out about Maria, Ellie cutting her hair and everything else. And then, finally, you had that scene. And then, they said, okay, let's go. And then you're starting. So once that's over, then you're starting to see, the little bit of montage. And then we get to the college. And that's why I think they didn't want to spend that much time at the college. So, but, it is what it is. Yeah.
But do you think that they just really quick, because I know we've been on here for a while, but do you think that from what you guys from you guys talking about the game and talking about how much is in there, I mean, I guess it goes back to what Destiny said about balance, because I feel like they're kind of rushing in a sense. Like, I mean, I know that, for example, with other shows like House of the Dragon, we want to see the action or whatever, but we also they have to build it up. They have to give us all of the information. But I feel like when you guys talk about all of these other things, that I'm missing information that would enhance the story. Do you think that they were rushing because they didn't know if they were going to get a season 2?
I think they always knew.
And do you think the pacing is going to change for season 2?
Oh, yeah.
Or,
absolutely. I think that anybody who knows what season 2 is, or part 2 is, I'll say this much. It's a little slow to start, but once it picks up, once a certain event happens, it picks up. And it's just nonstop. And that's the thing. So you're going to see a whole heck of a lot more action, especially for the television. Now, if you play the game, it gets drawn out. But I think definitely for that there will definitely be more action. So
but that's the one thing though, Kit, with the second game, there's only 2 games. So it's I'm still very curious on where they're going, because David mentioned that he thinks they should split up the second game.
Oh, they will.
I'm very curious to see what they do, because it's like, I mean, can you have a TV show that runs on for 2 seasons, or I mean 3 seasons?
You played the game, Kyle, so you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's, I think, very fascinating, because
I mean, and I'm not going to give anything away, obviously, but what I'll say is this: there is a scene. Okay, they definitely made decisions to ensure a great season if there was no second season. Yeah, no, absolutely. But with and somebody, I think it was Tyler, that had said it before. When they saw these ratings that just blasted off, even when the Grammys were on and everything else, they were not going to wait. They were going to greenlight this second season, and they had it already in the can and starting to develop the second season, because between the first season and the second season, not only do you get the time jump, but you have a hell of a lot more characters, right? You have a hell of a lot more enemies. So you have to then develop each one of them. And if they're smart, they'll flesh out all of those. So we as the viewer get the understanding of, okay, this is why they're doing what they're doing. It would be clever if they split the second game in a specific way. That game is, then they will, Louis. They absolutely will. And there's a scene that I'm not going to, I'll just say is this: the theater scene.
Yeah.
And you know which one I'm talking about. That will be, in my opinion, okay, that's where the cliffhanger is going to be. Because they love leaving on cliffhangers, okay? That is going to be the scene. And so it's the same thing. So, it's one of those things where that is the split. You're right. And that's where it's going to be. So, I mean,
before we end, I want to bring it back to this episode, because I just remembered. What did you guys think of the 3 months later time jump? Because
that was no problem for me.
For me, was that? I was saying.
That was the very beginning.
Was that in the game? Was that in the game?
No.
But I think it's just assumed because of the journey.
Exactly.
No, but when they do jump seasons, they do say what season it is, which this show has not done. It's just does time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a time thing.
Because for me, 3 months, I guess they bonded a bit more. They've been in other altercations, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, but they didn't really become Ellie and Joel until really the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Until that sequence, I mean, that
was
scene,
still somewhat, cargo.
Okay, they had the whole shoot. After that scene in the room, they were Ellie and Joel. Mm-hmm. They are now officially Ellie and Joel, because there was banter and there was everything else, but Joel's teaching her how to shoot. Joel's probably going to teach her how to whistle in the next couple episodes. Joel
taught her that construction.
What do you say? The contractor type of thing that
very popular.
Cool. And the fact is that he's going to be, he's teaching her about football and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So now they are Ellie and Joel. They are the Ellie and Joel from the game, and now it's, and so that's, I mean, even at the end of that episode, the tear in her eye. Get up, Joel. Get up. I don't know what the fuck to do. They care about each other, and it goes back to what she said in the room. I've lost people too. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's one of those things. Well, I mean, this is going to be an interesting. Next week's going to be Left Behind episode, or Left Behind DLC. So that's going to be fun. I'm glad they're finally fleshing that out. And to your point, Kyle, this is going to be the first time we're ever going to have DLC included in a game.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. And I think it's perfect. I think the one episode is perfect. You could tell the whole thing. And essentially, it's like a 90-minute thing. And it's going to be probably around an hour or so. Yeah. So Guys, we got a huge, huge, not only week but a couple months coming up. So, we're going to be doing Creed Week in a couple weeks. So Kyle and I are going to be. He's actually he talk about a trooper. Kyle's actually going to be sitting down and watching all the Rocky movies. I'm just going to be doing Creed. So as the music plays in the background, but yeah, so we're going to be doing Creed as a rewatch. We're going to do Creed 2. I have to sit down and watch that. And then on Thursday, we're both going to go see Creed 3. And then on Saturday, the 4th of March, we're going to be doing the spoiler cast for that. Breaking news. We are going to be doing a Mandalorian watch for season 3. So that is... I have to sit down and watch the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, so I can get all caught up for season 3. And so the first couple weeks are going to be March, going to be hectic, but nonetheless, we got all that. That's going to run for 8 episodes. I think it's 8 episodes, 8 or 9 episodes.
I don't even know. Yeah.
And then that's going to lead right into May. And May, May 5th is Guardians of the Galaxy. May 12th, and do not make me subject to the torture of going to watch Fast 10, please. I can't do it. I can't do it. But nonetheless, we're going to be covering all those June releases: Across the Spider-Verse, The Flash. That'll go see. The Flash, all the other Transformers. I'll go see all those. And then July, of course, we have Oppenheimer, and we have Barbie, and of course we have Mission Impossible. So we're going to be doing spoiler cast for all those. But family, yeah, it's all about family, Louie. It's all about family.
Boom.
Nothing but family. Yeah. So, but yeah. So for those weeks, we're not going to do a weekly roundup just because it's going to be too much, especially in June. But nonetheless, yeah, and we got a huge rest of the season, and we're going to be trying to get interviews and everything else. So, but all right, I think that's about it. Thank you everybody that dropped in and then checked out. Thank you for everybody that stayed. I would just say this. By the way, guys, Kit and Destiny, where can they find you on social media?
I be on these internets, in these timeline streets at bykitstone on everything pretty much. And yeah.
Where can they find you on Twitter? Is that your Twitter handle?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. And there, perfect, Destiny. You just helped me out greatly. So that's where you can find Destiny on Twitter. She's all on Instagram. She's on everywhere. You can
don't find me on Instagram.
Ah.
I don't use it. Don't look for me on there.
Okay.
I be haunting these Twitter streets, and that's about it, man. That's it.
Well,
find me in the quantum realm.
There you go.
Because...
There you go. Make sure. Maybe you can do a better job than Cassie did.
Yeah.
but that's for
Dad,
another time.
I would love for Paul Rudd to be my dad. Are you kidding me?
There you
also,
go.
I would like to add before we log off, I would like to add that if Joel came to my door, I would also give him soup. That's all I have to say.
Is this Joel or Pedro?
Oh, both. Honestly,
okay.
Honestly, both.
There we
It
go.
could be Troy Baker, fictional Joel, and Pedro Pascal.
There we go.
All are getting soup from me. Anyway.
There we go. All right, guys. Until next week, you can then we'll be back here at the same time next week, and we'll be talking about episode 7. All right. So I'm David. He's Kyle. She's Destiny, and she's Kit. And you've been watching The Last of Us stream. Bye-bye, guys.